Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a hard look at a really pervasive problem in the security industry, and I mean both physical and cybersecurity. It's a crowded, super competitive space, right? And yet so many incredible companies, ones with truly phenomenal products, are just struggling to stand out. So we're going to break down exactly why security vendors struggle to differentiate themselves, and more importantly, how you can break the mold. All right, let's dive right in. Innovative, end-to-end, AI-powered next generation. Does that sound familiar? I'm kind of holding up a mirror to the industry right now, because these are the exact generic buzzwords that absolutely flood every single cybersecurity and physical security website out there today. It's honestly like everyone is playing the exact same game of buzzword bingo. Which brings us to a pretty provocative question. If we walk down the aisles of a major trade show, or, just scrolled through a dozen vendor homepages, and we just swapped the logos, would anyone even notice? Honestly, probably not. The market has become this crowded sea of sameness where true distinction is completely lost. When your differentiation is buried under a giant pile of jargon, buyers are left asking the most basic question of all. Wait, what does this company actually do? So here's our roadmap for today. We'll cover 1. The sea of sameness, 2. The accuracy trap, 3. Crafting a value proposition, 4. A case study on brand transition, and 5. Return on investment. All right, Section 1, the sea of sameness. You see, most security branding falls into 3 super predictable pitfalls. First up, there's the fear narrative. You know the one. It's heavy on breaches, dark backgrounds, and glowing red alerts everywhere. Then second, we have the feature avalanche. This is that huge temptation to just throw more dashboards, more metrics, and quote-unquote comprehensive coverage right at the buyer. And third, the platform promise, where suddenly everything is miraculously unified, holistic, and end-to-end. Now look, none of these are inherently wrong, but they're just so common that relying on them forces companies to compete on sheer volume rather than actual conviction. You basically just end up being noise. Moving on to Section 2, the accuracy trap. Now, this is a fascinating psychological trap that highly technical companies fall into when they're really desperate to sound credible. Listen to this insight from the creative branding agency Nez and Pez. When everyone sounds technically correct, technical correctness stops being a differentiator. Because security is so technical, marketing teams default to safe ground, right? Architecture diagrams, analyst validations, that sort of thing. But accuracy alone doesn't create distinction. I mean, especially now with tools like AI chatbots, literally anyone can generate 400 perfectly grammatical, technically correct words of innovative, next-gen content. But AI cannot produce an authentic human voice or an actual point of view that tells a buyer why they should care. So how do we actually escape this trap? Well, we need to look at the blue ocean strategy. This is a concept rooted in academic literature that focuses on creating uncontested market space. You do this by raising product and process quality and building awareness of unmet needs. Essentially, successful security brands step out of that super crowded, feature-obsessed red ocean, and they completely reframe the problem around actual business outcomes. Things like reducing operational friction or lowering business risk. Okay, Section 3, crafting a value proposition. This perfectly illustrates the difference between what works and what doesn't. Just consider this bad example. XYZ Security is industry-leading and combines over 5,000 years of experience. See, it doesn't tell us what problem is actually being solved. It's just a generic list of credentials. Now compare that to the good example from SilverTrack Software. XYZ Security offers 24/7 365 patrol vehicles utilizing real-time reporting. This is fantastic because it directly identifies the service and it implies the exact solution to the client's problem. It's personal, it's specific, and it's totally actionable. So the absolutely crucial point here is that your messaging needs to pass what industry experts call the credibility test. Let's just run through a quick practical checklist. Number 1, can you measure it? Saying we reduced false alarms by 40% will always beat we leverage AI-driven anomaly detection. Number 2, is it tied to compliance or standards? For instance, stating your product meets NDAA requirements is highly useful. And number 3, is it completely free of buzzword salad? Seriously, if your value proposition cannot survive the scrutiny of a modern CFO who's just looking at the bottom line, it definitely needs to be rewritten. Now, if you're struggling to formulate this, don't worry. Here is a highly actionable 3-step playbook. Start with your headline. This needs to be a 1-sentence attention-grabbing explanation of the benefit you provide. Follow that up with a subheadline, just 2 or 3 sentences giving specific key value bullet points. And finally, use visuals. graphs, charts, or images showing your value proposition in actual action. This simple structure helps you communicate your distinct value immediately. Which brings us to Section 4, Case Study, Brand Transition. Let's look at a real-world example. Before their transition, a company called Northeast Security Group had an original brand identity that presented a really huge challenge for its owner, Jason Dawson. See, he had purchased a manpower services division, so guards and patrols. But customers were getting deeply confused, mixing up his new manpower services with an existing alarm and technology company that shared the exact same Northeast Security name. He desperately needed clear brand distinction to stop the confusion and actually grow the business nationally. So they executed a complete brand shift. You can see the transition from the old Northeast logo over to the evolution of the brand new Surefire Security Group identity. They managed to create a really clear distinction, a true blue ocean space, while still retaining elements like the shield to honor a 45-year legacy of trust. So this wasn't just a basic design service, it was a full strategic repositioning of the company's identity to clearly identify their specific products and services. And they didn't just stop at a logo either. They deployed this distinct visual system across all their physical touchpoints, from these really striking vehicle wraps to corporate materials and uniforms. Jason noted that this professional consistency secured an immediate positive first impression. It literally meant they spent significantly less time having to explain what their services were to confused customers, all because the brand communicated it instantly. And finally, Section 5, Return on Investment. Through an analysis of customer feedback, a full 25% of Surefire Security Group's business growth over a 3-year period was directly attributed to the improvement and consistency of their brand positioning and online presence. Think about that for a second. 1/4 of their growth came just from communicating their value clearly and distinctively. And the digital proof is honestly just as compelling. Between 2017 and 2018, their page views practically doubled, jumping from just under 4,000 to over 7,400. Even more impressively, their inquiry form submissions skyrocketed from a mere 18 up to 161. Escaping that accuracy trap and ditching the generic buzzwords literally transformed their entire sales funnel. So I want to leave you with this really powerful thought. If your security marketing sounds familiar, if you could just swap your logo with the competitors and no one would blink, you have to ask yourself, is familiarity helping or is it quietly holding you back? Because look, accuracy gets you into the conversation, but true differentiation is what keeps you there. It is time to find your uncontested space. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep differentiating, and I'll catch you next time.